Okay, like the fifth time is a charm here. The screencast keeps stopping. So I'm going to try to get through this, hopefully, and we can be done because it would be nice to go home to sometime today. Okay, AP Gov. So a couple things. One, in the Schoology folder, there's an assignment that you are going to do after you view this video that I'm shooting right now. Two, I put a review sheet in the Schoology folder so that you could begin to think about reviewing for the test. The forms of government PowerPoint and the theories of power PowerPoint is up there. You're going through functions today, and you'll have access to this. And then we have the democratic theories of participatory, pluralist, and elitism to cover. So that will take us probably Friday, Monday, and then we're looking probably at a quiz test on Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime in there. So I'm trying to make it so that it is accessible to all of us. Okay, so let's go through these functions of government. Hopefully we can get through it all. Okay, so the functions of government are things that all governments do. So whether you're the United States or you're Iraq or you're Russia or you're China, you're doing these functions. It's just they do them in different ways. So we're going to look at them in comparison to how they do them in the United States, how we do them. Okay, so the first one is to keep order in society. And again, all countries keep order in society. It's just they have different ways or methods of doing that. So the way that our country keeps order in society is we have rules and laws to maintain order. Not all laws are about keeping order, but many of them are. Whether it's to prevent crime and ensure safety, using the police, etc. Those things like, hey, you need to stop at a stop sign. That allows for the transportation of individuals to get from point A to point B without being inhibited by other people. Okay, so that's a law. If you don't follow the law, you could get a ticket. And if you harm somebody because you don't follow the law, then you might get arrested. So you might need to be captured by the police or those kinds of things. We use prisons and jails to punish offenders, and that maintains order because it keeps those people basically away from society for their timeout purposes or whatever that, for however long that they are supposed to be removed from society. Monetary controls is more about the circulation and flow of money and having a common currency so that somebody doesn't try to pass you a California dollar bill and you think that it'll be valuable when in reality it's not. Enforcing legal contracts, or traffic regulations, those kinds of things are pretty, I think, straightforward. Licensing a professional helps to keep order because we don't want, say you have appendicitis, you don't want a doctor operating on you who hasn't been trained in anatomy. So if it's a person who's a doctor of science, well, that's not a good example. Let's say it's a doctor from political science. That person doesn't necessarily know enough to be able to take out your appendix. So instead, you want a medical doctor, somebody who's been trained, and probably a surgeon who's been specifically trained in surgery. But we license other professionals like lawyers, accountants, teachers are credentialed, which is a license. We want people who know what they're doing to be in front of those students and be able to communicate the curriculum for them. The next function is to provide national defense. And it's obvious in the title what the intent is to make sure your borders are protected and your nation's sovereignty is protected. So we have the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, and they are the physical force between us and foreign entities. But we also have foreign policy programs where we have ambassadors who are liaisons between governments and try to open the doors of communication when those are shut. We have the National Security Council, who tries to make sure the protection of the nation happens from a national security perspective. Homeland security, the CIA would be another example of foreign policy aspect where their job is to gather intelligence or spy on other countries and make sure that there's no threats to the United States. But we also rely on treaties and diplomacy in a significant way. So, using the United Nations and, like I mentioned before, our ambassadors to help create an environment where the U.S. can settle disputes with other nations peacefully. So, settling a dispute with, say, Iraq is going to be a national defense issue. Um, Settling a contractual agreement with, say, Germany, again, we would say, helps protect our economic sovereignty. So there's a variety of reasons to use national defense. All right. And then our next one is probably the one that most people will have contact with for their lifetimes. First of all, when you are born, they issue you a birth certificate. That is a public service. Then you go to school. Generally, you could go to private school, but most people are going to go to public school, and that's provided by government. In fact, junior college, it would be an opportunity to have a public service as well. And incidentally, so is UCs and CSUs, because they are sponsored by and enhanced by government funding besides the tuition that the students pay. So that's a public service. Parks and the post office and roads, other transportation methods, trains and buses, those are all methods of providing services to people. General welfare is not just talking about welfare, although that is a public service, but it's things like Social Security and healthcare subsidies for people who might need insurance coverage. It could be Medicaid or Medi-Cal, Medicare for our elderly people. Those are all different forms of medical assistance. Medicaid is generally for people who are poor. Medicare is for your elderly people. And then Medi-Cal is the California version. So public services are probably the largest area that most people will interact with their government. I forgot to mention libraries and parks. I actually mentioned parks, but anyways, you get the idea. Okay, so public services. Some of these are used to keep order in society. In fact, if we didn't have public health measures, then we might have more chaos. So wearing a mask supposedly is a public health issue. And if you wear a mask, that helps keep us healthy, and then we can stay in school. And that will help you have an opportunity to achieve more because you have access to better education. All right. The next one is a hard one for most students. It's called promoting social standards. And it's the idea that we have a certain moral value in our society that we kind of agree to. Not all of the things do we agree to, but for the most part, we would say people shouldn't use drugs. Methamphetamines and heroin are really bad, and they hurt not only the individual taking them, but they cause problems with the rest of us, whether it be that person could commit crimes or they might need health care, those kinds of things. Now, depending on the state that you're in, some drugs are legal. Like in California, we do have legalized marijuana, but still there are restrictions around that, like you can't drive under the influence and those kinds of things. Pornography is protected somewhat by the First Amendment, but we would say that child pornography is absolutely not okay, ever. And so although the Constitution might protect certain activities as freedom of speech or freedom of press, some are absolutely not okay. And that would be one where I would say 99.9% of society would say that is not okay. We put age limits on activities, like you can't drink until you're 21, because we think that that's an age where people will hopefully be more responsible. You can't get married till you're 18. The government has to issue a marriage license to say it's okay to get married. You're only allowed to marry one other person. You're not allowed to be married to multiple people. So those are social standards that our society has created. If you think of it as a moral aspect, that kind of is an easier way to maybe understand or to get an example of a social standard. Okay, and then the next one is resolving conflicts. So instead of having to settle disputes by, meeting in the center of the street for a showdown, like at the OK Corral, we resolve our conflicts in court. And sometimes our conflict is with the government. So if the government thinks that we did something wrong, they might arrest us, but then we have a chance to go to trial and prove or defend ourselves. But the government has to prove that we're guilty. So that would be criminal court. But sometimes we have disputes between each other. And so instead of doing what Hamilton and Aaron Burr did, we don't have to do that. We can go to court and sue people for libel or slander and get a resolution there. Or if somebody violated a contractual agreement, if you agreed to wash my car and then I didn't pay you, you could sue me, and then the court could settle that dispute instead of having us to, fight it out or duke it out in the middle of the street. And so those 5 functions are the things that all governments do, but you have to have a way to pay for them. So the next function is taxation. And it's really not a function as much as it is an overarching umbrella of all the other functions. You can't keep order in society, provide defense, provide public services, and promote social standards and resolve conflicts if you don't have taxation. And that's where we debate. A lot of people would say, well, we don't need to have so much military. But other people would say, no, we need to make sure that our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines is well equipped with all of the latest, greatest equipment that they could have. So how much tax do we put towards those resources? And who do we tax, et cetera? It creates a lot of discussion and debate, but think of taxes as the overarching umbrella. So when you do the headlines, you're not going to do one for taxes because taxes relate to all of the other functions. And so your job for your assignment is to find one headline that represents keep order in society, one headline that represents provide defense, one headline that shows provide public services. All I need is you to copy and paste the headline. Make sure you cite your source. This came from the SAC-B or this came from the New York Times. And then how does it relate to the function? And you have basically a slide deck that you're just filling in. The assignment is called Functions of Government Headline Assignment. And you're going to show a real life adaptation of the functions. So this shouldn't take you very long. You should be able to finish before you leave today. But in case you need more time, it is not due until tomorrow night, Friday night. And we can talk about it in class if you're stuck on one. All right, you guys, I hope you're having a good day. Please review the section in your textbook also real quick on the theories of democratic participation. It's in chapter 1, which I asked you to read. We're going to go over that on Friday in class, and so that way you'll be prepared. Okay, have a wonderful day.